Welcome, Josh, to the show. How are you doing?
Thanks. Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. So I'm very excited to have you on the show. I know you and I have worked for several years together. For the viewers as well as for you, I have this is a channel called the NAD Coder channel on YouTube, and the primary purpose of this channel is to spread awareness, uh, is to share ideas with people. A lot of the subscribers of the NAD Coder Academy on Instagram, on YouTube are students, and we've had experts, we've had technical architects, we've had product managers from Salesforce who've come here and who've spoken about Salesforce. So I'm very excited because you are one of them. You are one of the trusted experts that I've worked with for several years. So I'm excited to have a conversation with you. I know you very well. So for the viewers, for the people who are probably listening to the show, can you give a brief introduction about yourself?
Yeah. And thanks for having me on. Yeah, massive fan of you as well. You put great content together, so I'm really excited to be on this. So my name for everybody out there is Joshua Drowling. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and I am a senior technical architect here at Salesforce. So really, kind of just describing maybe a little bit about my journey. Really got started more on the functional side of things, working for Blue Wolf, IBM subsidiary at the time, if anybody's heard of them. Great company, awesome people. Started on the functional side and relatively quickly and not too long started actually doing some solution architecture and performing in that role. Really like it, really doing well. But then it was something where, as I thought about where my career might go, the CTA was really attractive for me. So I kind of started that journey with really kind of buffing up my chops in that side of sphere. I actually took the board exam. Unfortunately, didn't pass it, but I plan to take it again next year. But either way, kind of just, I saw that being my career trajectory. And so I was like, all right, let me kind of transition in that way. So yeah, I've been at Salesforce since December of 2020. I've been doing operating as a technical architect for a bit of time, and it's great. I would highly recommend it. It's a great thing to be a part of. Salesforce is a great company to be a part of. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
That's amazing, Josh. So you started off as a solution architect. You are a technical architect. I think functional knowledge is so important when you talk to
Yes.
customers. You need to understand what the business outcome is. Um, Tell me, what are the 5 skills that you need to be a good technical architect at Salesforce?
Yeah. No, it's a great question. I think it's a good thing to think about. I'm mostly gonna hit on some soft skills. I think, technical architecture, I'll get to that in a second, but I would say mostly what makes somebody a good technical architect is a lot of the soft skills that make somebody a good consultant, make somebody good being part of a team. So I think the first, and this is one of my biggest things, is ownership. So Jay, you and I are working together on a project and I'm having you own the solution design in an area, is that I can trust you to get that done. Not that you're gonna say if you can't get it done or something happens, you can't escalate and we can't work together to figure it out. But if I assign it to you, I trust you to get that done. So I think that's one. Second is client and relationship management. So I think this
Mm.
is something where being able to really establish a good relationship with the client, being able to work with them, understand what they're trying to accomplish, and things are going to go wrong in different times. But being able to manage that relationship, being able to provide solutions when things go wrong, I think that's massive. So I think that's two. Three, team leadership. So technical architects, especially senior technical architect, you're typically leading teams. So I think in that sphere, being able to really lead the team, understanding how to use different people in different roles, understanding strengths, weaknesses, what to lean in more, maybe with one person versus another, maybe where somebody's good versus not as good in other places. I think that's massive. So that's three. Four, being flexible and adaptable and willing to learn. So Salesforce is constantly changing. Technology is constantly changing. So I think this is something where being adaptable and willing to learn what works and what's maybe the direction of something, especially with AI being a prime example. There's so much development and things going on right now. That's really massive. So that's where being flexible and adaptable. And then lastly, I mean, and I don't want to diminish and say those other things aren't as important as this, vice versa, but technical architecture. So this is
Mm.
really being able to really think through solution things well, being able to put the pieces together, understanding how do I structure and put together a solution in the right way, thinking about scalability, maintainability, future flexibility, where the client might want to go, and allowing their technology to do that and putting these things together is absolutely massive. So not necessarily coding, and I can speak on that in a second, but it's that technical architecture piece is absolutely massive of putting systems together.
This is such an interesting point of view. I would have thought, if I had asked what are the top 5 skills, most people would have focused on technical skills.
Yeah.
But I see where this is very, very important, like ownership, communication, team
Yep.
leadership. And when you spoke about the final technical aspect, you were actually talking about scalability. You were talking about
Yes.
making the solutions more secure versus being hands-on developer. And this is like more and more we are seeing it in the age
Yes.
of AI, where hey, AI will be able to write code, but there are things that AI cannot do. AI will not be able to lead teams. AI cannot
Yes.
have a fantastic customer relationship, because customers are different. People
Yes.
who are working at your customers are going to be different, and that's something that AI does not have. It doesn't have emotions. Um, Same with creating solutions. You can brainstorm with AI, and talk about, hey, this is what I want to do, and AI will write code, but eventually it's the human who is deciding. And if a technical architect does not take into consideration security, scalability, performance, your solution is going to suck at the end of the day.
Yep.
So tell me now, like, I think this is AI 2025.
Yep.
Every single day new tools are being launched. There's we started off with chat gpt, then we have Gemini. Now there are multiple agents that are being launched. I think as we speak, tomorrow OpenAI is going to launch its own agent. Google has its agent called Opal. There's N8, and there's Agent Force. There are dev coding tools. As a technical architect, tell me how AI has changed your role, and how do you use AI uh, in your daily life?
Yeah, no, it's a really, really good question. It's something I think we're all constantly grappling with and evolving with. Because to your point, all these tools are coming out. Like there's so much that's changing in the space. So it's how do we use it? Like how do
Mhm.
we, it's not going to do everything. Unfortunately, like AI, I don't know, give it 6 months, maybe it is, but it's not going to do everything, at least right now. How do we use it well?
Yep.
So I think really, as I think about it, the general advice I would give is if you're not using AI, you're not being as effective as you could be. And it's not to say
Mhm.
somebody can't be a good techno architect or senior techno architect without AI, because they can. Like I mentioned, those soft skills, somebody can lead a team well, but it's really about if you're not using it, you're not going to be as efficient with your time. You're going to have to spend way more time, way more effort thinking through things in a way where you don't need to these days. So it's about understanding when to use the tools and how to use them so that you can improve them. So if the next question is, all right, well, what do you use it for? So I think a few different things, and that's not meant to be holistic, but as far as what I've found, what can be most successful is initial content creation and design. So thinking about the initial design, initial scope, initial idea, maybe making a presentation, something like that. It's not going to be
Hmm.
perfect, but getting there. Brainstorming. So I'm working on solution ABC. What are my different options here? I have these different options. What are the things that I think about? I think that's synthesizing large amount of info. So I got a lot here going on. I'm sure we'll talk about it, Notebook LM in a second. Great tool, but how do I synthesize and understand what are the key points to take away? I think that's one. So those would be probably the initial things. And that's not meant to say this is the list, but if you think about an AI tool like an assistant, it's not meant to
Mhm.
be a replacement. But if you think about an assistant, how do I speed things up? How do I improve my quality? That's
Right.
kind of where I'd land it.
Right. It's almost like you have another team member to do this.
Yes, exactly. 110%. It's another team member who is willing to spend the time looking at all this, willing to take the time. And again, it's not going to be perfect. You need to guard against hallucinations. You need to guard against, hey, it might not have complete info, but it's another team member who can support you to make your time more efficient, to allow you to be more strategic.
So AI is almost like having another person on your team. It's something that you brainstorm with, and I feel like it's sometimes so helpful. Like sometimes when I have a question, I want to talk to someone. That person
Yeah.
may not be available, and at times it's you just ask a question, and the answers come to you. So AI, we are at the cusp of innovation, And I truly agree with you. There are things that are totally administrative, which we don't need to spend time on.
Yeah, it's a really good tool, and I mean it's not perfect, but if you're not using it, you're going to be spending way more time than you need to on a couple different things.
Awesome. And so tell us, how do you use it today?
Yeah, so good question. So I'd say there are three primary tools that I use on a regular basis.
Hmm.
Again, as I'm staying with other things, I've used other tools before, but these are the tools that I use pretty regularly that I'd say add a lot of value. So I think Gemini, so Salesforce uses Gemini. We have Gemini. It's really, really helpful. And it's that typical chatbot LLM AI tool that you can easily chat with. So I think it's something where it allows you to easily brainstorm those ideas. It allows you to easily put some content together and not to spend too much time on it, but I think just calling out a few of the features that I heavily use. So gems are a big one. I think there was recently a presentation I was a part of where a colleague talked about how he put together a gem that was actually a project assistant, if you will. So he was able to set the context. He was able to provide details, and gems with Gemini really allows you to have that consistent context throughout any questions you ask. So if you're coming back to something, it can be great. So I think that's one. Deep research is another one. So with deep research, a lot of tools have it, but the ability to have it do more like a report type of thing. So especially for something where maybe you're not as familiar, but but even if you are, maybe it's something where, hey, I did this maybe a year ago. Salesforce Connect is a big one where at my client, we recently implemented it. So it allowed me to make sure just, hey, in between when I last implemented it and now, do I have the right thing? So I think that's
Uh,
two. Yeah, it was really, really good. Just not as much to be like, okay, I know what worked, but am I missing anything?
mhm.
Yeah. So, and then besides that, Canvas is another really good thing where it allows, in essence, creating like a Google Doc, if you will, for
Mhm.
certain things. So, like for example, we recently were working on something. We were putting together how-to guides, and with a Canvas, I was able to outline, hey, here's the different things I want it to do, and it's able to put it together in a nicely formatted doc to allow me to really utilize it in a consistent fashion and professional fashion. So I think those are kind of the top things with Google Gemini.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yes,
And then,
especially Canvas. I feel I've seen people, like, I've used it for meeting notes to
yeah,
create infographics. Because meeting notes can be so bland sometimes, and you can just go when you enter meeting notes and you say, "Can you create a?" You just click on it and say, "Create an infographic," and it'll generate fantastic, beautiful reports
yes.
for the customers.
Yeah. It's one of those things where that's going back to what we were talking about before. It's up to us to kind of keep pace with these trends.
Right.
And so just, knowing about these different options, it's awesome. So what they can see. So I think that's Gemini. That's probably one of the top tools that I'm using.
Amazing. Any other
Yeah.
tool with respect to coding?
Yeah, so I think want to hit on Notebook LM just real quick. I want to talk about Cursor a good bit, but
Hmm.
Notebook LM, that's another tool really, really good. I think it's something where it allows you to build a notebook based on content you add and you design. So I think that's another really, really good one where, especially for something like discovery, got a lot of recordings, allows me to quickly interact with that and understand. So I think that's a second. But then third, Cursor is one I'm probably using the most, to be honest. It is an extremely, extremely helpful tool. So best way to
Mm.
think about it is an AI coding assistant that is really, really good. And actually, we recently did a presentation on it where there were a variety of use cases, actually not just for development, but it's honestly, it's an AI tool that's built on top of Visual Studio Code that allows you to really interact with metadata in the way you
Mm.
want, and it can help to generate code in the right way. So it's honestly, it's a massive, massive tool I'm using daily.
That's fantastic. So I want to say one thing about Notebook LM. I remember as a student where we had to study so much and
Yes.
gather information from different resources. As a student today, it's a fantastic place where you can just drop in multiple PDFs. And I saw they
Yep.
had a new feature called the flashcards and quiz.
That's a good
Incredible.
call. Yeah.
Incredible, right? I mean, even if you're prepping for a Salesforce exam, you can just put in bunch of Salesforce documentation, and then you can have your own flashcards or quiz, which will allow you to effectively prepare for the Salesforce certification. The
That's a great
second thing,
call.
is Cursor. I have been hearing a lot of good things about Cursor, but one thing that you mentioned, which really caught my attention, was it said it has metadata. So I feel, correct me if I'm wrong, but where Cursor really separates itself from Gemini or ChatGPT or something else is that it has context. It has
Yes,
context about what has been implemented, which means your LLM output is probably going to be way more accurate than something else. So for brainstorming, you might want to use Gemini, things like that. For research, you will want to use Notebook LM because it's going to give you output in terms of the things that you have used as sources. But from a technical standpoint, you want your LLM to have an understanding of the implementation, so you would then rely on Cursor.
exactly. I think that's a perfect way to put it because let's say I'm designing a trigger and I need to build some automation where it makes more sense to use Apex over flows for an automation. It's let's say it's bulk or performance or a variety of reasons I want to
Mhm.
use Apex. I obviously, if I'm building it in an org that's there, I want to follow a certain trigger framework. So the ability for me to, yes, Gemini can produce code, it can do a good job, but the ability for me to use a tool like Cursor that can reference the existing trigger and automation trigger framework, things of the like, that's massive. So that way it's much more applicable. And if I'm doing a POC, hey, it has that design. But if I'm building functionality,
Mm.
it gives me a great start to get where I want to go.
That is awesome. So I want no pressure. I want to ask you one thing. You have
Yeah.
been using Cursor, and my mind is blown. Can we see a demo? I feel like the
Yes.
people who are watching this video would love to see how Cursor works in reality, and then I want all of them to go and try out Cursor and see how they can use in their daily lives.
Absolutely. No, I think honestly, when we did the presentation we did on Cursor, like that was a big thing. Seeing it actually work is
Hmm.
massive for this. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and I'll walk through this. So gonna set the context and I'll share the screen so people can kind of see it, but I'm gonna set a little context before I read it off. So this was a prompt that I was working with my team on where what we want to do. So it's a field service implementation and the client commercial landscaping company, and what we had is they had crews, and in their crews they want to make sure that certain crew members outside of their normal assignment can be assigned to other crews on a recurring basis. So specifically, a good example of this is, let's say I have Joe, and Joe always works in Sally's crew. That's how he does. But then on Fridays, maybe we have Jim's crew, and Jim's crew, they do really important work on Fridays, or their Fridays are typically booked. And we want to make sure that
Hmm.
they get all their work done. So what we want to do is we want to allow for a functionality and a piece of the system that allows me to, if anybody's familiar with field service, what you do is you create a service crew member record. So you basically create a junction record between the crew and the service resource to align that connection of them, and you set dates. So what I want to do is to allow somebody to, from a service resource, to set it up to where they can set up this recurring assignment on a regular basis. So just to describe the architecture a little bit. So it's going to be launched by an action on the service resource page. It is
Hmm.
going to be a screen flow, generally where we want to do from an interface perspective. Custom interface, LWCs definitely have their place, but screen flows, if we can do that. And then this is where would recommend invocable Apex, and that's what this prompt is going to be doing with Cursor, is that I want to actually have the screen flow use the invocable Apex to do this recurring assignment. And I mentioned my background is in encoding, and just calling it out, like you do want to have that strong coder on your team. If you're putting to get that together, you want to have somebody who can review it, confirm it works. But at the end of the day, I'm not strong on coding. I want to put together a little proof of concept for this. So this is a great
Mm.
situation for Cursor to do. So did that make sense?
That makes complete sense. So this is the prompt, or is this the user story that you used?
So this is the prompt. So user
Okay.
story, I had that in a different place, but this is the prompt that I have put together the screen flow. So I've done that
Mm.
before the call, but this is the prompt that we use, or I use And I did a little bit of tweaking just to allow us to kind of see the end result in one
Makes sense.
session. But this is a prompt that really works on the evocable Apex. So just kind of reading through it high level, not going to read all the words. So high level, talk about this is a Salesforce field service implementation, sets a little bit of the context, create invocable Apex that can be launched from a screen flow, creates that service crew member assignment to a crew. So I'm giving it the details of the architecture so it has that context of where it'll be used. And then I give it details, okay, so for the provided day of the week for the rest of the year, and adjust any existing service crew member assignments as well so they don't conflict with the new assignment. So details, other details I have included in is what I'm going to pass into it, a detail about just how field service works, where with field service, you can't have a crew member assigned to a crew at the same time. So you need to adjust the existing ones and then create the new one. But then also, let's say it doesn't work. I want to roll back the changes so that it doesn't mess things up originally. Then a couple extra things just as far as guidance goes, where keep it simple. I don't want it to create everything. For those who have used Cursor, sometimes it can create a little bit more than you need to. So another thing there, use the existing code and any flows to know how to properly set it up, match the existing design pattern. So that's hey, I want to match the code of the orgs. And then a couple extra things. And then the last thing, just calling it out real quick, do a check-only deployment. And if there are errors, fix them and try again. So Cursor can do a good job putting it together, but a lot of times what you'll see with Cursor and other AI tools is it may build the code, but when you try to deploy it, it doesn't work. So this way, it does a check-only deployment. And then if it breaks, and as you'll see in what I'm about to show, then it will go ahead and fix it and try again to make sure it works.
This is actually my favorite part of your prompt, which said, do a check-only deployment and see. It's like validating your code against the target org and say, hey, is it even going to work? And if not, then it goes back, it fixes it, it does that again. So this, out of the whole thing, this is my favorite part of your prompt. I know you're going to show a cursor. I just have one question.
Please.
This is, let's say there is a brand new solution architect, technical architect on the program, and they've just started on the Salesforce, in the Salesforce ecosystem. They probably don't even know what an invocable Apex is, right?
Yes.
Will Cursor be able to provide them that recommendation? So remember, we spoke about Gemini, which was your brainstorming buddy. Can Cursor also be your brainstorming buddy plus your coding assistant, where you are giving a user story and say, hey, I actually don't know. And it may not even be someone who's new. It could also be a seasoned technical architect who is just lost for directions, and they are like, hey, this is the user story. I know what the technical feasibility, scalability is, but I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
Is that where Cursor can also be leveraged before it actually starts writing code for you?
It absolutely can. So I think this is something where generally what I prescribe to people using Cursor, if you do have that context in design, it's usually a little helpful to reduce the amount of time and spent iterating. But at the end of the day, if you don't have that, like this is absolutely something where you can ask Cursor, hey, I want to build functionality to do recurring crew assignments. How might I do this? So I think there's a situation where you absolutely can. The things that just calling it out that'll result is, one, you're going to iterate a little bit more. So this is obviously spend a little bit of time thinking about this prompt. This has several different pieces that is going to lead to the outcome I want. If I don't have those details, okay, I'm going to see the output Cursor put together. Let me tweak it. Okay, I see after maybe what the code puts out that, thinking about field service, or maybe we implement it, do the POC. I noticed that after it creates the new crew member assignment, it hits a validation rule, it fails. Well, then I know, okay, make sure that you adjust the existing ones first before you create the new one, and then you roll it back to those changes. So you absolutely can. I think this, it just comes down to, you're going to spend a little bit more time iterating on this, but you absolutely can.
Amazing. All right, let's see the demo. This is very, very exciting.
Yep, absolutely. No, I'm glad you asked that question. So just want to show this is Cursor before I show the agent and the chat interface. So for those of you who have used Visual Studio Code, this is basically Visual Studio Code with Cursor built on top of it. So it's really, for those of you familiar with it, it's going to look very familiar. It has a lot of the bells and whistles, which is really nice. So it allows you to kind of use it, which is really, really good. So with that, though, this is where you have the chat interface. So I've already run it. That way we don't have to spend as much time for Cursor kind of working through it. But this is where, I asked it the question and it gave me details as it worked through this. So I'll help you create it, give the to-do list, which is really nice to help me to see, hey, what's the logic as I do it? So you can see I added the prompt, just calling it a couple different things, rules. So I'm not going to spend all the time here. If we want to, we can, but rules are something that with Cursor, you definitely want to spend a good bit of time on to give it the context of best practices, things to think about. And then beyond that, you want it to have the context for the org. So I mentioned, hey, let's make sure we follow typical design patterns. That's how you do it with the context. So I think those are a couple different things to call out. And then other things, you can have it select specific models if you want. I typically leave it on auto, but I think this is something to where if you have certain models you want to use or you want to use your own model, that's something. So just showing the rest of it. So it goes through and analyzes the existing vocal classes and flows, really kind of looks through a lot of the code. And I'm going to kind of speed through this, but what it does is it works through, examines the existing code, thinks about best practices, and then it eventually creates a class. And I'll show the class in a second, but just getting back to what you're talking about, that check only, that's where it's really nice. So it does a test only, it fails, it has an error. So that's where I need to fix the compilation errors. Let me address those issues. And it actually works through a couple different times. And not to say if I'm creating this prompt again, okay, it struggles with date time instead of date. It needs to switch to that. I obviously could have added that to the prompt, but it's able to find that and fix it, which is awesome.
Right. And this is fascinating. So if you scroll up, it actually is like an agent, right? Where all you're saying is, hey, this is my prompt. I want you to execute this. And it's saying, there are 5 things that I need to do. So it recognizes how many things it has to do. And then it says, okay, 1 of 5 done, 2 of 5 done, 3 of 5 done, all of that. And then when it's on step 4, it's saying, okay, as part of this, I need to do these things. So it's going through that. And then if you scroll down a little bit, it's finding issues like date time instead of date. It's like fixing issues with your SOQL query. It's fixing your test class issues on the fly. So as a technical architect, you've given it a prompt and you're seeing it do those things.
Exactly.
Which would have probably taken you, like even the best developer probably would have taken hours to go through this. And I'm sure they probably would have missed something because they get notified about meetings, Slack, all those things.
Yeah, and it's that's where it's awesome because it's searching the web, like it's literally looking things up. Hey, what are the field phone service crew member, and it's allowing it to reference that naturally, so it can use that to fix the issue. So yeah, again, this isn't going to be perfect, but at the end of the day, then it gives me a really nice guidelines of, hey, what did it create? So it created this, gives me details about the class, key feature it implemented, and then it calls out this is a demo org. So there's test coverage about, hey, there's issues with, other test classes, but it nicely calls out all this stuff really, really well.
And if you can you show us the class? I just want to see how many lines of code did it write?
Yes. Here we go. Yeah. So that's the class, and then I'll pull up the test class as well. So I mean, yeah, it honestly, and looking at the structure here, and this is where it can be really, really nice to have metadata that has done this before. To your earlier question, somebody doesn't have the experience. Maybe they don't have the metadata downloaded. Maybe some company hasn't actually implemented invocable Apex. So it doesn't have that to reference, and it's still going to get there. It's just going to take a little bit longer. But how it puts these things together, it's able to use best practices in your org to do this, which is great. So, I mean, in total lines,
that's insane. It wrote 289 lines of code probably in seconds.
Yeah, it is very, very quick. And it's nice because it really uses those best practices you want to have, which is great.
You see that, right? Like when you see this code, it's not like, hey, it wrote 289 lines of code. You are seeing this particular class has comments, there's indentation, there's tabs, there's everything in there. Like it says add to existing members list, so it gets inserted later.
Yep.
How many times as senior technical architects have we seen code that is not properly tabbed, which has missing comments, and then we have to be like, hey, what's going on with this code? Can you please write comments? And these are, I think, some of the things that developers, technical architect can save time on, because we are focused on writing solutions. We are focused on deadlines. We are focused on building the product. And if we were to take a poll today of 100 developers and technical architects and say, how many of you enjoy documentation and writing code, 99 of them would say, I hate it, right? And
Exactly.
this is where Cursor is fantastic. It's doing such an incredible job. I can't. So it wrote 289 lines of code, and then it also wrote a test class.
Yes. And I think that's, talking about the things that developers may or may not like. I would say test classes is probably on the lower end of all the fun
Mm-hmm.
people get to have. But yeah, it wrote a lot of tests and it did a good job. Like it did the test setup, how we would want test data to be set up for each of the
Mm-hmm.
classes.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I mean, it has several different test cases, test assignment with existing conflicting records. To your point, it has the comments in the right place. Like it really does a good job. And then I think this is something, we talk about that iteration. What I would probably do if I was then going to use this, I need to look through this and make sure that it's properly testing the right test cases. Like this
Yep.
is
Yep.
doing the right thing. And maybe what I might do is actually spend some time thinking about what are those test classes instead of test cases, instead of asking it to just create a test class. But I mean, this created several different test cases, which is awesome to see.
And that's insane, because my biggest takeaway from this is, as a technical architect, you knew what the problem was. You
Hmm.
knew how you were going to build it. And instead of going in and building it, you're like, hey, I'm going to be an architect.
Yes.
So I'm going to tell it what to build. And then Cursor goes in, writes 700 plus lines of code. We saw like around 290 lines of code for the actual class, and
Yep.
you have 380 lines of code, around 600 lines of code
Yeah.
that it has written in seconds.
Yeah.
Number two is it goes and fixes its error,
Yes.
and it corrects it, so that if you wish to deploy it, the deployment would be successful, which is very, very key, because we are talking about time to market, time to
Yes.
deploy things quickly, and you don't want to run into those issues. So not only
Hmm.
is your code correct, it has written 600 lines of code with best practices, with comments in there, with making sure that your code runs. I mean,
Exactly.
this is just phenomenal in just a few seconds.
Yeah. It is a fantastic tool. And again, it's not going to be perfect, but if I'm building a proof of concept, I mean, this was easy. Like I created a prompt, added in there, it did it. If I'm a developer wanting to use this, this gives me what I need to get to a really, really solid place to, okay, I need to tweak it obviously here or there.
Mm.
Maybe it didn't take in this design pattern that maybe our code didn't use, but we want to use
Mm.
moving forward. So, it's not going to be perfect, but it gives you code that's ready to go, which is awesome.
So as a technical architect, I can also have a business feature, where, because Cursor has context to my code, like think of a big program where there are multiple technical architects, and
Yes.
sometimes you don't get to talk to each other because it's a completely different work stream, completely different business area. But if I'm able to connect to their org, Cursor now knows what 5 other technical architects have done. So if I
Hmm.
want to build a solution, I could be like, hey, I want to build a solution, but make sure that it doesn't impact anything else. So it could write
Exactly.
a class, I could actually use it to brainstorm and figure out, is there anything that even remotely exists to my business feature? And if it
Yes.
does, can I just tweak that existing class instead of writing a brand new class?
Yeah. And
And
I
then if it does, like it could just write it, I could test it, work directly with that a technical architect. If it does not, then I just writing a brand new thing and test it. And I think that's something that probably would have required meetings with technical architects, collaboration. Like here, I can just scan thousands of lines of code hundreds of classes, test classes, and figure out what other teams are doing.
Yeah, and I think that that's a really, really good point because another thing I don't have a demo ready to go, but I've used it for is I'm in an organ. I don't know all the different pieces of the puzzle, but we have an issue in some place. I've used it in the past for troubleshooting of, hey, there's this process, this is breaking. Can you examine the automation? And maybe I know it's Apex. Can
Mm,
you
mm,
examine the
mm.
automation to fix this? Another way I've used it is I want to have an initial idea of an approach to switch permissioning from profiles to permission sets. Obviously, permission sets is the future. Can you give me a high level idea of how the profiles are structured and what might be a good approach? So I think to your point,
Mhm.
it can look at the code in there. For those, I might not have as good of an idea, but it can examine the code and figure out the right way to accomplish something, which is awesome.
That's amazing. It just unlocks so many things for a technical architect. I'm guessing it can also be used for troubleshooting, where
Exactly.
you see, I don't know, like a 401 error, and you're like, I don't know what this error even means. And I
Yes.
saw in your prompt there's a section for image, so I can actually just take a screenshot for
Yep.
that error, put it here, and say, hey, can you like guess where this error is coming from? And potentially it might be able to at least pinpoint those classes where this could be coming from.
I've used that several times where it's, I know it's happening in this place and I can set the context and I can add this screenshot of here's the error I got. And, it can then go ahead and do research for me and say, yep, here is an example, or here maybe 5 places this could be, which is very helpful and very saves a bunch of time.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So anything else that you want to show us? Actually, I have one question for you.
Yeah.
So how did you come to this chat screen? I feel we were looking at the code and then you press something on your keyboard and it came to the chat screen. I'm sure most people would be interested in knowing that.
Yep. So I think it is. Yep. So sorry, I know you can't see my keyboard, but I'm using a Mac. So Command L. That
Command
way
L,
you
okay.
can do it kind of side by side. It pulls this up. But then let's say I want to actually launch it in the interface.
Huh.
I'll probably went too quick, but you can do this focus agent
Focusing.
window. So
Mm, mm.
that's why it allows for bigger, and it's not that the other one doesn't work. Like if I was to ask it to do that prompt in this screen, then what it would do is and this is actually a cool thing, as it builds a class, you would actually see it, be able to click on it and watch it make the changes. This allows for it to be a little bit bigger, just focused on this kind of chat interface, and allows the chat to be bigger. But then
Mm, mm.
again, you don't necessarily even have to use it in that way.
That's awesome. And I also see one more thing which says
Yeah.
past chat. So I can reference my past chats that have taken place with cursor.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you can see I have a couple different chats for this, but
Mm,
for
mm,
example, maybe I'm working on this. I'm working on the solution design,
mm,
and I want to then I finish this up. Maybe I'm the technical architect. I'm doing a POC. I get it to a good spot. Hey, developer, the code's in a POC org. You can reference it. And then a week goes by, and the developers look at it again, and they have a question on, hey, what about this, or what was this thought process, so I can easily reference the existing chat.
mm.
So yeah, a couple different options, but just the ability to reference different chats, reference context, honestly, a lot of great features.
That's amazing. I feel like a lot of people who are watching this today are going to go and try cursor. Like I've used cursor, but as we were chatting, this is phenomenal, right? I can think of like three use cases. One is estimation. This
Yes.
is something that technical architects use all the time. And we were just talking about there might be 10 technical architects, TAs, leads from different work streams that we don't know of, and we don't want to
Yes.
create duplicate fields, duplicate workflow rules, all those things. This is where Cursor could be incredibly helpful, where I just connect it to a dev org and say, can you help me estimate this feature? And
Yeah.
then it'll actually say this field already exists. And I'm like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I don't need to create more technical debt for me.
Yes.
Absolutely. I think majority of the people are going to use this for the use case that you showed. And the third thing that you and I were just chatting about is just taking a picture of the error, putting it there and say, hey, there's something wrong. I don't even know what this error means. Can you help me? Can you guide me to fix this error? And that time to troubleshoot probably is going to come down significantly.
Yeah, especially when I think that's a great point, especially when there's gonna be lots of legacy code in any org that we're
Yeah,
a part of, or even if you're not necessarily a consultant, but you're joining a company and maybe the guy who wrote the code, he might not even be there anymore, and people might
that's
not
right.
have an idea. Like this allows you to at least get a head started where it might be, then it'll recommend how to fix it, which is awesome. So, for those issues when it is urgent, it is a massive issue, this can speed up that time that you're spending in that when you might not have all the context massively.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So, anything else you want to show us, Josh?
Nothing else to show. I think just yeah, we've hit on it a lot, but just this is something to where Cursor really really awesome tool. The presentation we gave before, it was really about, hey, how can you use Cursor not just for coding but for other use cases. I think I referenced the situation where switching from profiles to permission sets, so even those who maybe aren't coders or they're thinking maybe staying more on the functional side, like this is a very useful tool because of how it can reference an org's metadata, that
Hmm,
highly encourage, even if you're not going to be a coder or that's not where you see yourself going, check it out, play with it, just try it out. And I think it could be really helpful.
that is awesome. This was extremely educational, exciting. I I'm 100% sure that people who are watching this today are going to drop in a lot of comments, and they're going to try using Cursor and probably share a lot of use cases with us which we may not be even aware of. So I'm really
Yep,
excited to looking forward to listening or finding out those use cases. um, yeah, this was fantastic, Josh. I feel like we need to do this more often. uh,
agreed.
have more videos out there so that all these cool use cases can be shared with the community.
Agreed. Definitely, definitely all that. There's so much out there. And, like you're saying, I'm sure there's 10 different use cases at least that we aren't thinking about using Cruiser for, that you can use it for, and it's going to be awesome. So it is, this is what I found, what you found, but it is definitely not the only things where something like this can be incredibly helpful.
Amazing. Well, like I said, Josh, I knew this was going to be a fantastic podcast, fantastic YouTube video, and you've knocked it out of the park, man. Like this was absolutely fascinating. So thank you for accepting the invite to be part of the Nadcoder family, to presenting your screen. Thank you for sharing the 5 things that technical architects have and actually giving us a live demo of Cursor. Truly appreciate your time.
More than happy to do. No, I'm, as you can probably tell, I'm passionate about it, and thanks for having me on. Honestly, just the more people can use this stuff and see how great it is, I think the better off we all will be.